Well, hello, everybody. We'd like to thank you for taking the time to join us for our second Educate and Elevate workshop. Today, we will be going over just different tips and tools and pointers on resume creation and interview preparation. Myself, Kiera, I'm Kiera, by the way, and Dominique, we're going to cover both of those topics according to our expertise and to go through everything. If you guys have any questions throughout the duration of the conversation, please feel free to drop them in the comment section. We have other people monitoring the comments. So by all means, if there's anything that we say that triggers a question from you, drop it on in the comments and we'll get to it towards the end during our question and answer portion. We have a lot of information that we're going to cover. So if I were you, I would grab some paper, a pen, the notes in your phone, whatever you have to make sure that you're able to take notes, because the information that we're giving you, although this is being recorded and it will be available later on our YouTube channel. Yay, YouTube. We don't know when and how soon we'll be able to get it posted. So in the meantime, just make sure that you do your due diligence and to take notes on the things that point out to you. So as I said before, thank you for joining us. My name is Tierra Potts. I am the founder and the president of the PottsFoundation. I also have a writing and resume business, which is why we decided to use two of our very own to host this workshop. Dominique?
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Dominique Kapar, and I am one of the board members of the PottsFoundation. And I am super excited to be here with you guys and to share some information that I've come across in my career. So I have worked for Verizon a little over 12 years now, and I currently work in talent acquisition as a campus recruiter. I've been in talent acquisition for about 5 years, a little over 5 years. So super excited to answer any questions that you may have and just provide some detail, as much detail as I can, as you prepare for interviews, as you prepare to enter into the workforce, whatever that we may be able to provide to you, we want to be able to do so this evening. So that's me.
Thank you. So we're kind of just going to jump right in. Like I said, we have a lot of information to cover and not a lot of time to cover it. While we're getting ready to go over everything, if you are viewing on Facebook, we encourage you to share it. You never know who this information may reach and who may need it. So by all means, share it on Facebook, share it on your personal page. If you're not following us on Facebook or Instagram, we can be found on both platforms under the PottsFoundation. So to jump right in, overall, the intent of this workshop is to provide graduating seniors and college students with different tips, tricks, and pointers on resume creation and interview preparation. Some of the things that we're going to cover, of course, is the general creation of your resume, what you should include in your resume, what the link should be, what the formatting should be, along with some different things that you can do to use your transferable skills. So if you have this job that you work that maybe isn't completely relevant to where you're wanting to go, how to kind of flip that into being relevant for your career and your entry-level position. We're also going to cover interview tips, such as how to respond to behavioral type questions and the format in which you should respond and how to prepare for that, what you should do after your interview and how you should move forward. We're going to go into the internships a little bit as well. So first and foremost, you're going to hear us speak a lot about doing your research before you get ready to apply for a position. It's super duper vital for you to know what you're wanting to do and how to get there. So we're going to say research over and over and over again to kind of drill it in a sense of how important it is. So before you get started on creating a resume, the first thing that you should always do is to research the industry and the position in which you're wanting to apply for. That comes in handy when you're getting ready to create your resume, because you're able to create a specific resume that is tailored to that particular opening. It helps narrow down the job search. It helps your resume be more effective and more efficient. And when you're doing that, you're able to clearly articulate your skills and your experience and align it to the criteria within that particular job announcement. You will always, 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 always have better results in your job search by tailoring a resume to the opportunity in which you're wanting to apply. The way that I like to present it is that if you were going to target practice, you're going to constantly miss the target if you don't have aim. So when you do research and when you research that industry and research that position, you're essentially creating a place for you to aim and a place for you to focus on. So that's something to always remember before you start to apply for any position. So if you don't know, you may be asking, well, what is a resume and why is it so important? What's the purpose of it? Your resume is a document that provides a summary of your personal qualifications. That can be for a job, it could be for a project, it could be for a scholarship, or even an educational program that you're getting ready to apply for. It pretty much summarizes the most important information for an employer who needs to know about you. It's a marketing tool that speaks on your behalf in your absence. It's what, as a recruiter, it's what Dominique will look at. She may not know who you are from a can of paint, but your resume may speak to her in such a way that encourages her to want to know more about you. So with that, we'll go into the purpose of your resume, which is to land an interview. What I like to say is, contrary to popular belief, your resume does not get you the job. Your resume lands the interview, and the interview and how well you interview is what lands the job on your behalf. Some basic things to include in your resume will always be your contact information, a professional summary or objective, depending on where you are in your career, an areas of key expertise, education, internship, and your work history and your professional experiences. Because we are mostly talking to college students and graduating high school seniors, for you will also include any professional affiliations that you may have, any extracurricular activities that you have, awards and special recognition, volunteer experience, and leadership experience. So to kind of go into those sections one by one, your contact information should include your name, your address, but with your address, you're only including the city, the state, and the zip code. You're not going to include your physical address for security purposes. You're going to include your phone number, a good working phone number, and your email address. Your email address should always be simple. First and last name @gmail.com type of simple, not anything that, what is something? prettygirl@yahoo.com. We don't want to use those type of emails when we're applying for jobs. So just make sure that the contact information that you include is accurate, is valid, and another thing to note that we'll talk more about later is to make sure that your voicemail is set up and not full. Your professional summary or your objective is what I like to call pretty much your introductory statement. It's what you include. You include the most relevant information and your most impressive qualifications for the desired position. The statement should always be concise and comprehensive, and it's usually about 3 to 4 sentences. So if it's only 3 to 4 sentences, that should tell you that you have to make sure that you are very careful in the information that you include in this section. For a lot of people, it can be what the deciding factor is for somebody to continue reading your resume or to move on to somebody else's. So make sure that your professional summary or your objective is impactful when it's written. Let me slow down. Under your professional summary, you're going to also have an area of key expertise. Your area of key expertise is going to include different skills and relevant keywords for the position that you desire. If you are looking for let's say a position as a nurse, the skills and the keywords that you're going to use throughout your resume are going to be words and skill sets associated with that particular field. You're not going to say, that you're good at, let's see, something that I do. I know that customer relations and patient intake, things of that nature will be different skill sets that you would include for maybe a nursing field. The next thing that you're going to have listed is your education. As a graduating high school senior, as a high school student, as a college student, your education is going to be your bread and butter right now, because you do not have any experience yet, or enough experience for that to be the most important information. So your education is always going to remain at the top for the first 2 years post graduation, or while you're in school. Your education will be placed at the top because it needs to be the primary focus until you get more experience under your belt. Then you're going to go into your internship, work history, or professional experience. That will be what's listed next. That should include present and past employment, the dates in a month and year format, the company, the job title, and relevant skills and accomplishments. What I think we've gotten really, really, really bad about is just listing tasks that we complete at work. And if somebody wanted to just know what you did on a regular basis, they can go pull your job description. The key in your resume is to list the information in a way that helps you stand out. So with that being said, your resume must showcase how well you've accomplished your job functions and demonstrate, to the prospective employer that you're qualified for that position that you're applying for. And a simple way to do that is something called the CAR format. It means challenge, action, and result. You present the challenge, the action that was used to overcome the challenge, and then what the result of that was. When it's written in that format, it moves your resume to be more performance-based than task-oriented. It helps outline your job history to show that, hey, this is a person that brings results. This is a person that I can depend on. If you have your resume and the only thing you have listed is wrote news releases, that's kind of vague and it's kind of boring. But if you have a resume that states that you wrote 25 news releases in a 3-week period under daily deadlines, that gives more specific and more concise information that shows that you know how to work on a schedule, that you're good with your time management. And depending on what you're applying for, it may show that your work ethic is also well, because you completed 25 news releases in a 3-week period versus maybe Sam over here who completed 1 in a 3-week period. Numbers are such a powerful tool as it pertains to your resume, because it helps pretty much pinpoint your skill set, your work ethic, and it helps draw the attention to your accomplishments. The next thing that you will have included, if it's relevant, if it's not, it's a section that you don't need, is professional affiliations. What I would consider professional affiliations are organizations that you've joined in high school, more so in college, that are nationally recognized, to where if you apply for a job with Verizon and let's just say you're a member of an honor society and that honor society is nationally recognized, they'll see that off of from the beginning and say, hey, well, I was also a part of that organization as well. So you never know how those connections may work and benefit for you in the future. The next thing that I would have included would be awards and recognition. Include awards and recognition that are unofficial and official, so that for me, it gives proof of your performance. It gives proof of your skill set. It's proof that you bring results. As long as you have, awards and recognition, it says, hey, Kiera didn't go to work every day just to do her job. Kiera went to work every day and she was goal-oriented enough to accomplish this task to receive this award. So Any awards and special recognition that you receive should also be included on your resume, especially if it's relevant to specific jobs that you've completed in the past. Volunteer experience. Sometimes it gets overlooked by the person who needs to create the resume. A lot of the times we think that, hey, I completed this task over the summer with this organization. It doesn't mean anything. But if you worked, or let's use church. Let's say that you worked at your church. It's most of the time for church positions, they are solely volunteer, but you may have been performing a particular skill set that's needed for your future, for a specific job that you're applying for. That makes it relevant. Whether or not you were paid, whether or not you had a special job title, you can put volunteer. If that works for you, if it was a specific position, then you list that specific position. But make sure that you include your relevant unpaid experience as experience to help as a resume builder. Another thing that you can include as a high school or a college student is leadership experience. Oftentimes, I've found that students, they may have time to work, they may not, depending on how their schedule is set up in college. And so in those instances, your leadership skills and the positions that you held become extremely critical for your future. So same as your volunteer experience, it's all relevant experience as long as it contributes to where you're wanting to go. One thing that I want to always make sure that is super duper 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 clear is not to include any personal or sensitive information that would allow somebody to discriminate against you. You never include pictures, you never include your social security number, you never include gender information, race information. None of the demographic information should be included on your resume. Another key thing to remember is to always keep the most relevant and valuable information at the top. What any HR or recruiter will tell you is that you have a very, very, very limited amount of time to make a first impression. So with that, you want to make sure that you make the best first impression that you possibly can by including the important stuff at the top. That's why it's important to keep your resume concise, to keep it to the point, to keep it short and sweet, if that is what is called for with your skill set, which takes us into resume length. A general rule of thumb is not to have more than 1 page per 10 years of experience. I understand that, sometimes we may job hop a little bit until we get into a comfortable group of where we are career-wise, and that's okay. The key thing to remember with that is, even if your resume exceeds a page, and you should never limit yourself to a page number, but you should also be mindful that with that, if you're going to go beyond a page, still make sure that the information that's being presented is clear and is concise. You don't need to have 6 bullet points for one job, because eventually the information is going to become redundant. It may become, I don't want to say useless, but essentially useless. Just make sure that you're including the most valuable information that you can. I think one of the most, what do I want to call it? One of the most important pointers that I've gotten attending a career fair was to not limit myself to 1 page. For my career field, it's more beneficial for me if I don't, which is why it's important for you to do the research beforehand to know that this job field, this job sector requires this type of resume, whereas this job sector may require this type of resume. What the private sector will always work a little bit differently than the government sector. A government resume will always be longer. It will always have more information, and it's just full of stuff. But even in that, it should be full of relevant information. It shouldn't go through each and every meeting that you've attended and each and every conference that you've attended or training session that you've attended if it's not relevant to where you're wanting to go. So let's talk about keywords. Again, research. You will never know what keywords you need to include in your resume if you don't take the proper time to do a little research. Research can take 30 minutes tops. Like, you can find out what you need to know research-wise on a position in 30 minutes. I mean, we spend 30 minutes on social media. So why not also spend that same 30 minutes researching something that's going to put money in your pocket more than social media? So in your research, you will find the correct and relevant keywords to include for the applicable positions that you're seeking. Many companies use what's called an applicant tracking system to scan your resume. Your resume is scanned for those keywords that need to be included. Those keywords pretty much help determine if you're a qualified candidate. If you don't have those keywords, or if you haven't completed the necessary research to see what those keywords are, then you pretty much risk your resume going to the trash. So again, research. Research is important, guys. And so I wanted to kind of take a pause and take a break and to, again, thank you for joining us. We are on our second session of the Educate and Elevate workshop. The intent of the workshop is really just so that you know that we're here as a resource. We want to make sure that we're sharing valuable and relevant information with you about your future, especially as college students or as students getting ready to enter into college. There's so much that I didn't know preparing for college. And so the workshops were a more tangible and realistic way to give back, to spread that information. It's just certain things that we don't talk about enough, honestly. So that is the intent of the workshop. This particular workshop is going through resume creation and interview preparation. So we're just going through different things right now that you should include in your resume, different things that you should do to contribute to your resume. And later we're going to talk a little interview prep. So if you're not following us on social media, I would encourage you to do so. We can be found as the Potts Foundation on all platforms. I see that there is a question on Facebook about cover letters, and do people really critique those? Don't worry, it's coming. We're gonna get there, because we as we were preparing for this session, we kind of had a conversation about that. So we're definitely gonna talk about cover letters soon, like next 5 minutes. So to jump back in, transferable skills. Transferable skills are proficiencies that are used in a variety of jobs and industries. Pretty much what a transferable skill means is that maybe you spent, instead of working, let's see, a common job for a high schooler or a college student, you may be babysitting, maybe working in a fast food restaurant. So the skills that you pick up being in those industries would be things that we consider transferable skills. Transferable skills can be communication-based. They can be leadership-based. They can be adaptability-based, critical thinking, and things of that nature. So some transferable skills to consider would be communication, and that's all form of communication. That is written, verbal, and your active listening skills. Responsiveness, how soon or how long it may take you to respond to an email. It matters depending on your job field. It matters a lot, believe it or not. Public speaking, your work ethic, your ability to meet deadlines, and your ability to be self-motivated. Self-motivation is really, it's a big one, because your self-motivation tells a lot about your work ethic. So if you kind of go to work every day and you're just going to work because you need that extra money to accomplish this, and that. So maybe you need the extra money to maybe buy this purse, to buy these shoes, or pay your rent, or pay your insurance, whatever the case may be. Your self-motivation to do those things drives that particular transferable skill. your ability to work on a team, to build relationships, and to resolve conflict. All of those things matter. So if you are babysitting and you're babysitting multiple children, and I mean, kids argue, they fuss and they fight all the time. How do you resolve conflict between those children? That is a transferable skill. Your time management, your organization, your analytical and your critical thinking, your ability to problem solve is transferable. Your adaptability and flexibility. A lot of people are resistant to change. So how do you respond to change? How do you adapt to change? Are you okay with change, or does change make you a little agitated? So those are some things to consider. Your leadership and goal setting, project management capability, problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, process improvement, working in a fast-paced environment. So if you are in a fast food restaurant, you have a timer that's set that you have to go through and accomplish these orders. So with that, that's something that's a transferable skill that you can use later to make it relevant. Customer relations and troubleshooting, your attention to detail, and your computer skills. All of those things are considered transferable. So what I also like to tell a lot of my clients is to pretty much keep a running, living document list of the things that you complete at work. When it's time to sit down and write your resume, a lot of the times we're kind of sitting there like, where do I start? What do I do? But if you keep a running list, you pretty much remove that headache of stressing out about how to find that information. So when it comes to different skill sets that you're gaining by employment that you may think isn't relevant now, make note of it for your future. I spent probably about 2 years working in a call center. In the first 6 months, I loved it. It was very relaxed and very easygoing because it wasn't the typical call center setup. We pretty much worked primarily with responding to emails, and calls got worked in later. Loved it at first. Year and a half later, I was like, I hate this. Why am I still here? But it was a job that I needed to teach me a lesson. So the skills that I learned in that call center was information that I later ended up using in my business and later ended up using in my career, because it taught me how to deal with customers. It taught me how to deal with irate customers. It taught me how to generally just do business and how to set up different things to organize the way I did business. So here I was thinking, hey, I just need a job. I need somewhere to work to provide income. And later in life, it revealed itself that what I was learning on that job would actually be relevant for my future. So always make sure that you keep notes of the information that's provided, that you're doing, the tasks that you're completing in any job, in any role, in anything that you do. So cover letters. I have written in my notes value of a cover letter, and is there one? Kind of 50-50 on it. I feel like if a job needs a cover letter from you, it will be stated that they need a cover letter for you. I don't really know any other way to put it. They're typically not mandatory, and if it is mandatory, then of course include it. If it's provided, it's going to be given to the recruiter or the hiring manager, so it will never necessarily hurt you to have one, but it's not really necessary. Dominique, you kind of want to jump in really quick for that?
Yeah, again, that's going to circle back to research, as much research as you can about the particular industry. I would say that I haven't received a cover letter, probably maybe 1 or 2 since I've been in talent acquisition. And then it was sent over via email. So it could be that follow-up emails or beforehand emails have kind of replaced the cover letter as well too, just because that is the day and age that we live in now. So for me, cover letters are not relevant. I don't really look at them. I am going to look primarily at your resume.
Thank you.
Of course.
So here are some writing tips that I would give as you are preparing to write your resume. It goes along with my last point with making sure you keep a living document of the tasks that you have, and it would be to create an outline. You make a list or an outline of all your possible experiences, paid or unpaid, and you view this outline as just a brainstorming session. You drop down what you can freely. You don't stop. You don't stop to think. You don't stop to organize it. You just jot down the information as it comes to you. Make an outline. Another thing that I would say is to include informal work experience. As I said previously, leadership experience and volunteer experience can be relevant information, especially when you're lacking in job history per se. So your experience as a cheer captain, your experience as maybe just a cheerleader, and being a member of a team, that's information that can be written up in a way to make it relevant for your resume. And it's also one of those things to where I say, if you don't know how to work it in, ask a mentor, seek professional help, ask one of your teachers, one of your family members, a guidance counselor member, ask a friend who maybe has a little more experience in it than you do, ask a resume writer. You have multiple resources to kind of help you put together this information. Include activities for high school students, for college students, and sometimes for adults, depending on what your background is. It's always, you should include the activities that you're a part of, especially if it's relevant. If it's not relevant and maybe you need a resume filler as a student, I'm still going to say include it until you get more information to kind of trade it out with. You have to remember that as you matriculate through life, that you kind of are limited in the information that you include, not kind of by default. It's not always your fault. So include activities to help draw upon all aspects of your life. That way, whoever is reading your resume, they can, what you include in your resume says a lot about your character, so it says a lot about your work ethic, and says a lot about your skill set. Promote your attitude and your performance. Employers will be most interested in your work habits and your attitude. So maybe the extracurricular activity that you have listed answers the question to that particular thing. Mention your achievements. Employers look for staff or look for employees who have a history of making a positive impact and positive contributions. Include any challenging or advanced academic projects or work assignments that exhibit your intelligence and your work ethic. As I said before, make sure that when you mention your achievements, that is highlighted in that CAR format. CAR stands for challenge, action, and result. Those statements showcase your benefits to a potential employer. Include resume skills. In that brainstorming session that you're having as you do your research, also include the skills for that particular industry. So if you know that you want to be, I use my job, be a contract specialist. For me, the administration portion is very important. The paperwork, the paper trail that I create for work pretty much is a make or break part of my job way before any contract is executed. So include skills of that nature, record management, project management. All of those things are relevant for my career. Keep it short, but include all necessary information. It may sound a little counterproductive, I know, but there's a way to keep it short and to include your relevant information. So make sure that you use plain language, avoid using acronyms in terms that are not easily understood. There are far too many times where I'm talking to a client, I'm like, what does this mean? If the average person was reading your resume, would they understand this? I get that it's relevant for your particular job, but what if the person that's interviewing you doesn't know your job? It makes the information irrelevant. So avoid using acronyms, avoid using too much work jargon, because there's no guarantee that the person that's interviewing you is the person that you will be interfacing with every day. Each and every, some of the interview panels that I've had, I don't want to say sat on, that I've been a part of as an interviewer, some of the people that were giving the interview did not work in that career field. They worked in HR and they were working to fill a position. So with not knowing who's going to be reviewing your resume, please avoid too much work jargon that the average person can't understand. The most important thing and the most important tip that I will give you as it pertains to writing your resume will be to proofread your resume, proofread the draft there, and don't just proofread it like just me, like get somebody else to read it too. As a resume writer, I know that I am not error-free. I'm human. I'm not perfect. So with that, my director read over my resume, my supervisor read over my resume, and my team lead read over my resume, because I understood that I will not see it all. I will not catch it all. A lot of the times we read things the way that we want them to be read. So you may miss a simple grammatical error because the way that it's written and the way that you want it to be interpreted is the way that you read it, and that's not what it actually states. So always remember to get someone to proofread your resume for any errors, and sometimes to make sure that the information that you're including is all relevant. Some things to remember once you've completed all of these writing tips, all of these steps, and gone through all of these things, you want to always look at your resume and ask these questions. Can a recruiter or a hiring manager see my main credentials within 10 to 15 seconds? I know it's quick and it's short, but that's why you always make sure you include the most relevant information at the top. Then, does the clinical information jump off the page? It goes back to that CAR format, making sure it's written in a way that entices the reader to want to read more. Do I effectively sell myself on the top quarter of the page? Use reverse chronological order to list your experience. What that means is that you will always want to include your most recent education, your most recent job first, and you work your way backwards from that. And then lastly, be concise and keep the paragraph short. Short and sweet will always be the key. And that is it for our resume portion of the workshop. Before we move forward, of course, again, I would like to thank you guys for joining us. This is our second Educate and Elevate workshop. These workshops, the sole intent and the sole purpose is to make sure we are sharing information that we didn't have or that we didn't know as college students, as high school students preparing for college. So thank you for joining us. Please make sure that you are following us on Facebook and on Instagram. We can be found on both platforms under the Potts Foundation. And I'm going to hand it over to Dominique.
All right, thank you. And everything that you provided, all the information, very impactful, very important. When it comes to your resume, that is the first thing as a recruiter I am going to look at. Of course, you have an application that you're going to submit online through whatever company that you may apply to. But don't forget to upload your resume. A lot of times I will see somebody submit an application without the resume. That resume just kind of gives me a little sense of who you are. You can do a resume in multiple different formats, and you can add little things here and there. A lot of people create websites, they put links in there, links to their LinkedIn, their professional social medias. So always include that resume, upload that resume. That's going to be one of the first things that I say. So as a recruiter, I am kind of like that middle person before you get to the actual hiring managers. And I'm most likely going to have like a first round interview with you. So one of the first things that I will say is going to be research on the particular job that you are applying for. And I know you've heard it time and time again already, but it is so important that you pull out those keywords. So in my role, I'm responsible for creating the job description that you see online also. So I have worked directly back with the business and found out exactly what they need, what they are desiring in a particular individual. And then I'm going to create that and put it in a format and put it onto our website. So I'm familiar with what I'm looking for and with what that job description is. And so I'm going to take a look at your resume. I'm going to look and see if this particular individual can do the job that my managers are looking for. Generally, they do say that recruiters, we take about 10, 15 seconds to look at a resume before we say yay or nay. I take a little bit more time sometimes, and that's just because of the particular type of jobs that I recruit for. So I am going to look at your past work experience. I am going to look at your education. Currently right now, I recruit for interns. So I'm looking at what you are doing at school, your extracurricular activity, your past internships, as well too, how active you were. Again, to Potts' point, we really want to see not just what the job description says, but how are you able to utilize that skill set and put it in the job that we are recruiting for, actively recruiting for. So we want to see that. How are you able to move numbers? How are you able to drive? Whatever the case may be. I'm going to probably say numbers a lot because I deal with that a lot in my role. So, but that's what I want to see. I want to be able to take a look at instantly, hey, yes, this person is going to be able to handle this job, is going to be able to work with these hiring managers. And so I would probably take maybe 30 seconds to a minute to look at a resume versus just the average 15 seconds there. So again, very important. Another thing that I would say, because a lot of times Pot did mention about having your voicemail set up, having your voicemail cleared out. That's going to be the other thing I say is very important. It is nothing worse than when a recruiter calls, says, hey, this person doesn't have a voicemail set up and now I can't get in contact with you. And also I know it's very frequent right now for us to have spam control set up. So when I call an individual, I'm not calling them and it's not going to say the company I work for. No, it's going to say my desk number. So with all these different spam controls, when you're looking for a job, it may be a little temporary thing that you need to turn that off because sometimes the phones just automatically send them to voicemail. You may miss out on opportunities. So I will also say be mindful of that. And then be mindful of the way that you answer your phone. That is your first impression that you're going to make with a recruiter as well too. So be mindful of that when you're going through your job search, when you're going through this job hunt, be mindful of how you're responding, even to a number you do not recognize. I know we get all of the car warranty calls and all this good stuff, but that is one thing I would also say be very mindful of. So once we get you, we're talking with you, a lot of people, they do reach out to a resume writer for their resume. Make sure you've taken a look at that resume after someone's prepared it for you. Most likely when I call out to you, I'm going to have your resume pulled up. I'm going to ask you, hey, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about this experience here. Tell me about your activities that you listed here. And if you're not fully aware of those things, you won't be able to fully articulate that to me. Will I pass you on to the next round? Who knows then? So you want to make sure that you are familiar with what you have listed on your resume, that you're able to speak to that, and that you can speak to that at a drop of a dime. So usually when I'm reaching out to individuals right now, it's not a formal interview, but I will ask, hey, what drew you to this requisition and why do you want to work for us? And it's kind of like an on the spot 5-minute interview with that first recruiter. So again, be prepared, conduct your research as you are going through this career search, this job hunt, and never think, oh, it's just an entry-level job. I don't need to do all of that. Everything is practice. Somebody's going to look at that. They have those simple setups, and I think Microsoft Word, you can do a resume template in there too. Practice with that. Have someone else look at it. Everything is a learning lesson when it comes to preparing for your career and the next stages in your career. So moving forward from your resume, that interaction with your recruiter, and I would also say take any feedback that the recruiter gives you during your call with them really listen to that. Listen to some of the things that they say consistently. I know it's really big right now, diversity and inclusion, social responsibility. These are things that companies are really focusing on right now. So you really want to start to look into their websites, what each company is doing, how they're active in community, what are they donating to. Like, you want to know those things when you're interacting with that recruiter, and you tell them those things, and they're kind of like, oh, wow, that person's really doing their research. They really want this job. So again, all ties back into your research. And then actually going into your interview. So I like to tell people that this is your time to shine, okay? You don't want to be arrogant, true enough, but you want to know, you want to own your ability and your skill set. You want to know that, yes, I can come in and I can do this job. Not only can I do this job, I will excel at this job. We want to hear that confidence for sure. And it's not a time for you to kind of, oh, maybe I think I can possibly. No, this is the time to really be confident in your ability. I would also say, and I will never forget that I had a leader of the business before I went into an interview myself. There's like, hey, I don't want the veggies. Like, give me meat and potatoes during this interview. And essentially what he was telling me, I don't want the fluff. I don't want to know, okay, it was a rainy day, I wasn't feeling that well. Like, no, he wanted to know exactly what that situation was, what the tasks were, what actions took place, and what was the ending resolution. So that's going to be STAR format. Most companies use STAR or either BAR. It's background, action, ending, resolution. And they're basically the same thing. When I interview someone, that is exactly how I format my guides. I put it down specifically like that. And it's kind of hard now. I used to tell people when we were doing face-to-face interviews, if I stopped writing, or if a person stops writing or stops talking, most likely what you're saying is not relevant. We're listening, but it's not really exactly answering the question at that time. So it's a little harder now that we're virtual, but kind of keep that in mind as well too. So bring those specifics there. Really be able to show how you are able to contribute to an overall team. You want specifics on how you're able to contribute as an individual contributor as well. To Potts' point, or Kira's point as well, to make sure that you are talking about those numbers, how you're able to drive those numbers, how you're able to move those numbers, how we're able to see those challenges, and how you're able to resolve those things. I would definitely say you want to make sure you have those examples as you're beginning to go through, you know, even high school projects or college projects. Those are examples that you can use in an interview. You don't have that work experience yet. You may not have that work experience yet. So use what you have. And I like to always tell people, when you come across those challenges and when you are able to overcome those challenges, keep like a notebook, so that, or keep some type of living document online or in your email, that you're able to, as soon as those things happen, that you are able to go ahead and document those. You have dates, you have exactly how that was an opportunity for you to grow, both professionally and personally. So when it's time to interview, you're not scrambling all over the place trying to think of examples. You're able to go ahead and go right to that living document and pull from that based off what you are applying for. So those are, again, some things to kind of help your mind, your mindset when it comes to interviewing. And when you get into those interviews, you're going to have those get to know you questions. Every question has a purpose. Everything that we ask has been strategically thought of and what we're looking for. So when we say, tell me a little bit about yourself, and you say, I like to walk my dog, I like to do this, that, and the other, that's great information, yes, but tell me about your experience that you have listed here on your resume. I want to know how you are able to turn this into something that I need done here, essentially. So it's good to know a little bit about that individual, but again, every question has an intent behind it. So I would definitely say practice those get to know you questions, and you can look those up online as well. Always be able to give every point at the beginning parts of your resume. Those are the things you want to really be familiar with, because those are the things we've most likely looked at in depth. And then what I will also say during your interview, be mindful. It's no problem writing down a question. It's nothing wrong saying, hey, let me just go ahead. Can you repeat that again? I want to make sure that I've captured everything that you stated. I want to make sure that I'm able to answer this question fully. If you could repeat yourself, I want to go ahead and jot that down. Don't take all just trying to jot down everything that they say. Get the big points, what they're asking for, jot those things down and say, hey, I just kind of want to take a moment. I want to make sure I provide you with the appropriate response, if you don't mind. And 9 times out of 10, a recruiter or a hiring manager, they won't mind you taking that time to provide them with a more robust type of example. So go ahead and take your notes, have pen and paper readily available during your interview. And then make sure that you're taking your time to provide a solid response to each one of those questions or parts of those questions that have been asked. And again, of course, keep in your mind situation, task, action, ending, resolution. That's what we're looking for. So again, you just want to make sure you're getting a full understanding of the question and that you have answered that completely. And now that we're virtual, we still should be on camera, but you still should be able to pick up some type of response from the person that's interviewing you. Are they shaking their head? Are they smiling? Picking up some type of response to if you need to go a little bit more in depth, if they're looking for more, and if you feel like you haven't provided enough content. Sometimes I ask, hey, did I answer that question, completely or accurately as well too? So I don't think that there's anything wrong with asking that. So take notes, take pen and paper. Don't be afraid to ask them to answer the question again, or ask if you can have a little bit of time before you provide your response. The next thing that I would definitely say is very important, your follow-up questions. So at the end, most likely you're going to have an opportunity to ask some questions. The interviewer will ask, hey, is there anything that I can answer for you? And yes, you need to have some type of question prepared already, whether that be particularly about the job, if it's about the company itself, if it's about where the company is going within the next 5 years, if it's about asking that particular individual, hey, if you guys don't mind, if there's enough time, I would love to hear your career path. How have you moved about with the company? How is career progression set up within your company? Really asking those questions about that shows that you are really invested in growing with this company, starting off with this company, and you want to learn more about the individual that's interviewing you, and take note. And the reason why I say take note, after your interview, you also want to send some type of follow-up communication. It's so awesome if you bring back that information and you plug it back into that email. Hey, Potts, it was great talking with you. Thanks so much for sharing with me that you've been with the company for X amount of years and you've moved from this department to this department. I love to see the growth. And, if you need any additional information from me, here's my contact information. Here's some additional references as well too. So follow-up is very important as well too. A lot of my hiring managers, they're so impressed once, 5-10 minutes later, they get a follow-up email as well too. And it just you want to put those things, do those things that's just going to put you up a notch. We have several different applicants. 9 times out of 10, well, 8 times out of 10, you may have the same background as these individuals as well too. So what's going to put you ahead of the game? How are they able to see you and your personality and fitting that into their work group? So I support a very great, amazing group right now, but it's a small group, and it's a small group of engineers, and they have to make sure that the person that they're bringing in is going to fit well with the group. And so it's your time to really show yourself and your skills and your personality to make sure that you're going to fit in, because everybody they're interviewing, they all can code, they all have great internships behind them, but it's all about how you're going to fit in with that particular group's and their skill set. So that's the information that I kind of have around interviewing. Yeah, so Potts, I know that we probably have some questions, and I definitely am open to answering those.
Yes, ma'am, we do. Going through some of my notes. If you could, we have this question too. It says, when we begin building our resume, do we include things we've done in high school as well, like Beta Club and Honor Society, or only things we've done throughout college? And for me, I'll say that it depends on where you are. So if you are a freshman in college or a sophomore in college, and maybe right now all you have activity wise is the Beta Club or the Honor Society or what have you, then yes, included. As you begin to matriculate through college, pretty much determines what information should be removed and should be taken off. Anything activity wise that you're no longer actively a part of 2 years down the road, take it off. Because at that point, it's not relevant and it may not be adding a benefit to you. But once you are in college and you have information to replace that with, you work it in, you work it out according to relevancy.
I would agree with that as well too. And like you said earlier, those national societies, those things are things that I would say, depending on where you are within your career as well too, and what you're going for, applying for internships, I would definitely say to keep those nationally recognized organizations on your resume, because again, it's those little things that put you above. So I think it really depends on what you are going for. Yes.
I think it's important to always remember that when you are applying for internships and when you are applying for jobs, that you are in competition with other people. And that competition is not you, Tom, Betty, and Harry. You're competing against hundreds of people. So you have to go into it with the mindset of, how do I stand out amongst hundreds, in some cases amongst thousands? So just keep that in mind as you are getting ready to do things. And you brought up internships, and I know that for me, I had an advisor pushing me to do an internship, and that's I was able to do 2 internships before I graduated college, and those 2 internships showed me that what I thought that I may be okay entering in career-wise, I really wasn't.
Right.
So can we kind of hit on the importance of internships and when you should actually apply?
Yeah. So internships, and another part again about doing your research, different companies offer internships at different times. So my employer, we only offer summer internships. So if you are a graduating senior for 2022, you would have missed your opportunity to do an internship with us. So it's important to know the industry, when that particular company is doing internships, what time of the year. And then I would say start your internships as soon as possible. Right now, a lot of internships are going to be virtual, and that's just because of what's going on right now. But something that I did not know, internships can be paid too, but also companies will offer you relocation assistance to get you there just for the summer. And on top of that, some companies partner with local universities to rent out their dorms so people can stay in a dorm at the local college or university, and that person come in and work. So that, again, that was before COVID and stuff. So when we were really doing things more in person. But yeah, I didn't know that before I came into this role, that companies actually partner with universities in local areas to provide room and board for internships to come in. So interns, you can start. We had an internship offer for high schoolers as well too. So you can start as soon, and I would suggest to start as soon as possible, because you want to ensure that the major and the field that you're thinking is going to be your dream job is actually something that you can do 40 hours a week, and something that you would enjoy doing. So I would strongly suggest taking the time to research and begin your internship hunt and journey as soon as possible when you are in undergrad.
It stops the the what now panic. And a lot of times what we don't talk about, when you graduate college and you graduate without a job, it puts you in a spot.
Yeah.
I don't even.
For sure. And
Yeah.
I actually make offers. I have kids that I've made offers to who just wrapped up their internships in August. And I made offers to them in September, and they don't even graduate until May, but they already have a full-time job with, relocation assistance wherever where they're moving to before they even walk the line and have the papers. So it's nothing better than having that comfort going into your senior year of college.
And comfort it is. I'm
Yes.
telling you, life on the other side of it is not, it's not fun, and it's not pretty,
Sure.
and it will put you in, honestly, like a postgraduate depression. Like, you'll have this idea of what life should have been like when you graduated college, and then reality sets in, and you're kind of like, okay, well, now what? What do I do? Where do I go? And it's just not the place that you want to be. So, like Dominique said, apply for those internships as soon as you can. Research and look for internships, because a lot of companies do in fact partner with HBCUs, partner with different colleges and universities, and provide you with relocation assistance. When I had my second internship, it was through one of those partnerships. I interned with the Fortune 500 company. They flew us to St. Louis, and it was really to recruit at HBCUs. In that particular field, people of color were few and far in between. So they looked for talent at HBCUs. They flew you out there to this big event. You met other people from different HBCUs, all with the intent to interview for this internship. It was an intense 2 days, but it ended up being a good time. And after that, once I did receive the interview, they again took us back to their headquarters, which was in St. Louis, first for a week of training. They paid for it all. And then they sent me off to the middle of nowhere, Kansas. And in the middle of nowhere, Kansas, they also gave me relocation money to get settled and everything. I had traveling expenses and everything paid for. So it just pays to do your homework. I'm glad that I was able to experience that, because A, it taught me what I didn't want to do. And B, it taught me a lot of life lessons. That was the first time I had ever traveled alone. That was the first time I had ever lived alone. And so knowing how to pretty much ease yourself into those situations only happens when you step out and get an internship. I know that a lot of times people are focused on either just attending college and don't want to take the time off to do a co-op or to do an internship, because co-ops are great experiences too. Take the time off. But hear me when I say to take the time off, because if you graduate college with 0 big fat goose egg worth of experience, it makes it harder for you post-graduation to gain employment. You will graduate and you'll see this position open with Boeing that says, hey, you need to have 3 years of experience. And you're looking at that position like, I don't have 3 years worth of experience, and this is an entry-level position. It's because you didn't do your homework, because you didn't do the research. So take the time to begin figuring out what you want to do. Don't ever be so caught up in a timeline that you think that you can't take a break to get that experience work-wise, or that you have to focus on the partying aspect of college, because you can have fun, but there's also life after it that'll set in very hard if you don't find some priorities. With everything. So
for sure,
that's my soapbox.
I'll definitely say don't be afraid. I know a lot of people, they're just kind of scared. I don't want to go away for the summer by myself and do a 10-week internship in Kansas or in a big city like New York or New Jersey. But it's a temporary assignment and you're going to be on your own in a little bit anyway. So I would say don't be afraid to get out there and take on that challenge of an internship.
And the experience of the internship itself wasn't bad. It was just an adjustment, a very big adjustment. But like I wouldn't change it for anything, because it taught me a lot.
Yeah.
Let's see. Some more questions that we may have. As an interviewer, what tips can you share for someone with speaking anxiety?
So I would say practice, and not only just practice by yourself, I would say practice recording yourself, practice with an individual as well too. And this will give you the ability to pick up on some of those cues that you may have that you want to really work on. So record yourself, watch it, take note of it, and practice on it to ensure that you are kind of getting those jitters off and kind of seeing what your triggers are, what your trigger words are that make you nervous or make you kind of repeat yourself or doubt yourself. I would want to say to take note of those things and then see how you can replace those actions while you're speaking. So just again, preparing by recording yourself, working with a mentor, working with just a friend. Say, hey, practice and ask me these questions and tell me how I respond. Tell me, would you hire me if you were to be a hiring manager? So that's what I would suggest there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, practice. I don't want to say practice makes perfect, but practice builds your confidence. So sure. I will never, ever, ever forget. I interviewed for a position like back in January, February timeframe, and I bombed the interview. I mean, bombed it. And I knew that I bombed, but I remember texting one of my friends. She's like, "Oh, well, maybe you didn't do that bad." I said, "I did." Like, I've never done that horrible in an interview. So I know that it was a little rocky, and nonetheless, it came back, and I didn't get the position, which was fine. And for my particular employer, we have the opportunity to get debriefs, which essentially means that they give pointers on what you could have done better. Mm-hmm. And what made it even more of a gut punch was the fact that I literally missed it by like 13 points. But again, it was a valuable lesson and me taking the time that I needed to properly prepare, which leads us into our next question. How does asking for feedback benefit me if I do not get the job? Is there a timing etiquette when asking for feedback?
Mm-hmm. I would say yes, it is definitely beneficial because even if you do not get the job, just in your experience, you are able to get that feedback, you're able to get those pointers. So when you go into your next round of interviews, then you are able to identify exactly where you kind of dropped the ball at, and you can focus on those things in your next interview. So I think it is important to get that feedback. And as soon as if you get a rejection letter or email, whatever the case may be, you can turn around and respond right then and there. Most likely we have the feedback readily available to you. We've probably had it for a while, but once you receive that communication, hey, thank you for the opportunity. Is there any feedback that you can provide to me to prepare me for my next, my next interview? So yes, it is definitely very important to get that feedback.
I agree. Because I asked, it placed me in a different position to succeed when I interviewed for the opportunity again. So where I was maybe like 30 something out of 100, I went back, I took the time. I also wrote down the questions. I did, like Dominique recommended that earlier. During that interview, I did take the time to kind of jot down what I could remember from the questions after the call. And I also jotted down some things as we were going through it. It was a completely telephonic interview, so it allowed me that space to write it down. And they recommend that you take some time to write it down, that you ask if they repeat the question. That way you can make sure that you're answering the question in its entirety. And the value of me asking and requesting for the debrief gave me feedback and gave me pointers on where I needed to improve, because the issue was, it wasn't that I didn't have the information, it was that I didn't take the time to go in depth enough to answer the question. Something so simple, resume was perfectly fine, but my ability to thoroughly answer the question was my hang up on that particular thing. So the benefits of the debrief was that I went from 33 out of 100 to like top 3. So it just, like I said, practice doesn't make perfect, but it darn sure builds your confidence. So I stepped into that second interview feeling 10 times better than what I did the first time. 10 times better. And if you don't, you can also pay for interview prep sessions as well. There is no hurt, harm, or foul in that. Everybody doesn't have the gift of gab. And sometimes you get nervous and sometimes you get a little anxiety, but practice.
Yeah.
Stand in the mirror, talk to yourself, watch your hands, watch your body movement, watch your behavior to see what you're doing and how to take note of it. Another question that we have are, what are the top 3 mistakes you see when reviewing resumes? And I think we can both kind of tag team on this one. I know that sometimes people just include too much information. I think I reviewed a resume before. It was 11 pages and it literally detailed every bit of the job, like meetings that were attended, trainings that were attended, dates, and just a whole bunch of stuff that just didn't matter. And it took, I think the resume went from 11 pages to 3. And after I sent it back, he was like, oh, well, I see, of course he saw a big difference, but he also saw the difference in just removing the unnecessary information and including the most relevant. I think for me, another thing I would say is not having a tailored resume. Having a general resume is all fine and well, but it's not effective. You don't have a target that you're hitting. You're just aiming, and you're aiming to see where you're going to land. You're not aiming with purpose. You're not aiming with focus, which makes it pretty much just a piece of paper that somebody's reviewing. And a third, grammatical errors, or I'll say this, not knowing what's included on the resume. So before I complete anybody's resume, before I work on anybody's resume, we go through and we do a consultation. And that consultation pretty much tells me whether or not you know what's on your resume. And I tell people it may feel like an interview. It's not, but it can be considered like a preparatory thing, but they don't know what's there. They don't know how to describe what's there or how to go into more detail about what's there. And it's very, very, very important to know what's on the paper that you give somebody as they prepare to ask you questions about it. So those are my 3 spills.
Those are kind of like my 3 too, I would say. Having a resume that is not specifically tailored to that job, I think is a huge mistake. Not caring about your formatting, your grammatical errors, having that in there. How does it look once we really pull it up? Those things are important as well too. I wouldn't even say, well, from on my end, the length of it, because again, we only look at those top 3 things. So I really don't even know sometimes how long your full resume may be. So those are, take your time with it. There are legit people that you can pay to do your resume. So take your time, invest in yourself. You have to look at it as an investment in yourself, an investment in your career and the next stage in what you want to do. This is a representation of you, and how are you going to get in front of that manager is going to be your resume. So take the time out to invest in yourself.
And I think that I know that a lot of times people do not necessarily view your resume as an investment. It doesn't matter if you do it or if you pay somebody else to do it. It is an investment. It is something that has the ability to take you from $25,000 a year to $40,000 a year. It's something that a lot of people don't see the value in paying for it. But if you think about it from a monetary standpoint, it's like, okay, here I am working, this temporary part-time job and getting, like I said, $25,000 a year, but I need a resume. And it's like, okay, well, I don't really have the money to get a resume done properly, so I'm going to do it myself. all fine and well. Just make sure you do the research and make sure that if you decide to seek help on someone doing it, that what you pay for your resume will equal the product that you receive back. So take some time to review their Facebook pages, to review their business pages, to review their websites, to look for reviews and testimonials of people who've utilized these services before. It takes a lot of time to formulate a tailored or an accurate resume. So a lot of times people's price, and I'm going to be biased, of course, because I write resumes, but the price will equal that. I know that when I first started 7 years ago, I didn't charge a dime because I knew that it was something that I was trying to perfect. And as I've gotten better and as I've gotten results over the years, my price has changed more and more because of that. So just make sure you take the time to even do your research with that if you're going to trust somebody else to write it, and to review it if somebody else writes it. Let's see. How can I exhibit non-verbal professionalism? And that can be, let's just, for the day we get ready to go back to in-person interviews, or if you're on a Zoom call and you may, be waist up, head up, whatever, whatever the case may be, how to exhibit professionalism in that sense.
Yeah, I would say, and this is just from what we do, and I think it depends on your audience too. So, for example, a leader that I work with doesn't require, but asks that you're always on camera, and so it's really noticeable when one individual is not on camera during a meeting or something like that, when we know that's really kind of the ask of that leader. So really kind of knowing exactly what they're looking for, and then being aware of like your background, your settings, the noises around us. I know when we first started working from home, we had to get acclimated to the dogs and to the children and all that good stuff as well too, which we still have to deal with. It happens still, but how often is that becoming an interruption? Mute, if you're on mute and not on mute, and those side conversations, being very mindful of that as well too. And just legit your interaction. Are you engaged? Do you have eye contact? Are you agreeing? Are your head nodding? Yeah. Are they able to pick up? It's already difficult and challenging enough to sit in front of a camera. But when you just have people just sitting there looking like, I'm not really interested, I'm only here because I have to be here. I think that is important to be mindful of face expressions, and that's in person and virtual anyway. But facial expressions are very important, especially in the virtual aspect. When you're presenting information, when they're asking, hey, what's feedback? And everybody's just silent, just try to have something prepared. I try and tell people.
Preparation, it goes a long way in creating a resume and getting ready for an interview. Research and preparation, they are super duper 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 important. Another question that we had is, what are good ways or terms to use to exaggerate entry-level jobs? They're fast food, babysitting, cashier, etc. One thing that I'll say is to make sure that you are including quantifiable information and writing in that CAR format. What that pretty much means is to write with an action verb, a quantifiable point, and a specific and relevant job duty. So what you may have without that is that you trained cashiers. That may be your only little bullet point. But to exaggerate that bullet point, you give specific and concise information. So you say that you train 5+ cashiers to manage their cash limits and guaranteeing great customer service at all times. Just add a little more fluff. And it's not bad fluff, it's accurate fluff.
It's accurate. It's what you did.
Yeah, it's what you did. You just made it sound 10 times better by giving a number. Goes back to the importance of numbers, and giving something specific, something concise. So anything like that, I would keep in mind to write in a 3-part bullet point. If you don't understand the CAR format, the STAR format, write it in a 3-point bullet point, which means an action verb, a quantifiable point, and specific and relevant job duty. Structure it that way. It puts it essentially in those formats that you're looking for. Because the important thing to note is that when it's written in that way, it makes it 10 times easier when you get ready to interview.
Yes.
Because you just pull from that example and be more specific, be more detailed, because you have the opportunity to kind of give the meat and potatoes and not the veggies. Resume, in a sense, can be considered the veggies because it's the stepping stone to present the meat and potatoes. So.
Right. And then during your interview, you can reference those things in an example, and having the interviewer refer back to your resume, like, hey, you see, while I worked at this place, there's listed, I did this project, and, provide an example around that. So I think that that's also a pretty good, a key point as well.
Agreed. Let's see. What is the difference between a resume and a CV? A curriculum vitae. That sounds French. I don't know if it is. So the difference between a resume and a CV. A resume is always going to be sweet, concise, and to the point. A CV is going to be detailed and include. It's what I'll say is that a lot of people who hold PhDs have CVs. If you do not hold a PhD or are not a PhD candidate, then a CV is probably not needed for your particular career field, because they just have additional information that, as common folk don't have and do not need on our resume. So and I like to say a PhD candidate because that's really all that I've written them for. They'll have different, different conferences that they attend that's later relevant to them in their career set. So a CV really doesn't limit you to a page limit, if that makes it a little easier to understand. But the average Joe has a resume and not a CV. Just want to throw that out there. CVs are special and not always necessary.
Right.
Let's see. The best way to eliminate useless job what is the best way? What is the best way to eliminate useless job experience without showing gaps in work tenure? So, writing a resume, you can write it in reverse chronological order. You can write a functional resume, or you can write a combination of the two. So when it comes to removing useless job information, I'll say that it's in that place that you're creating a functional resume. For me, if I remove job information, I always tell my clients, hey, because it will create a gap, and you have to be okay with it creating that gap. But I'll say, hey, this is going to create a gap. But when asked, say I created a resume that was functional and more relevant to this particular position. And so although I held employment during those times, this is why I removed it. Or depending on the formatting of the resume, you may have a section that has additional work experience listed at the bottom that includes those jobs that aren't particularly relevant, but that kind of closes those gaps for you. Those would be my 2 approaches. I don't know if you have anything that you want to add. I don't know whether or not it's something that you even care about.
It's something that I'm looking at that top part of your resume. If that top part of your resume or that first job description, last job description that you are currently in or just left from is not relevant to what I am looking for, then that may be a 10-second resume that I look at.
Like that. Just when in doubt, ask. There's always somebody. There's a lot of information that I found just by asking a question on Facebook. You never know. Just ask. Somebody told me the other day, there's no such thing as a dumb question. The only thing that's a dumb question is a question that isn't asked. So if you don't know, ask.
Google it.
Google. There's so many resources.
Right.
To finish out, we will do me make sure there aren't any more anywhere else. But this question is, are there questions in an interview that shouldn't be asked of a candidate? And if they're asked, how do I respond?
Yes. So you want to make sure that, well, questions that shouldn't be asked, of course, around race, around religion, marital status, politics. What else did I say? Did I say disability? Anything that can be like a discriminatory type of thing. So those questions should not be asked by your interviewer. If they are, you are totally able to say, hey, I don't feel comfortable providing a response to that. I don't feel like, if it's an appropriate question. But yeah, you definitely do not have to ask anything around those, answer anything around those type of things during an interview, and just letting them know that, again, that you don't feel comfortable providing a response to that.
Easy enough to me.
Yeah, I would hope. But again, I've only really worked for one company and we're trying not to do that. So I would hope that no interviewer would ask those things, but it may happen.
2 more questions and we are going to wrap it up.
Yep.
How do I search for the job that I want?
So I would say, of course, we have this great tool, the internet, and you can legit just Google jobs under this major. And you can start your search there, or jobs in marketing, jobs in whatever. So you can do a simple search like that. LinkedIn is a huge, huge marketplace for recruiters. We stay in LinkedIn all the time. We will post where jobs that we have available, what companies we work for, how long we've been there. So like, we will put enough information on there about ourselves where you, if you're interested in that particular job and that industry, you can begin to connect with someone. But really finding out exactly, it's LinkedIn and Glassdoor. Glassdoor has reviews from people who have actually worked for particular companies. So if you narrowed it down, hey, I want to go into marketing and I want to work for a marketing firm in New York, you can begin to start researching just based off of that, using those things there. You've narrowed down, hey, I want to work as a marketing analyst. With the entry-level marketing analyst role. We have what's called a Boolean search. And what that is, you can put in all those key components in a search engine. You can put it into LinkedIn, those 3 different things. You would put in company name, +sign, entry-level, +sign, marketing. It will instantly pull up every single detail that LinkedIn has around those 3 things there. So those are a couple of little tricks that you can start to use, but definitely LinkedIn. Every industry recruiter is there, and every major job that you want to possibly move into most likely is going to be there. So utilize the tools that we have available to us easily and that are for free. You have your career fairs also, virtual career fairs. You don't have to be in school necessarily for that. They could just be industry specific. Type of career fairs. Sometimes you have to pay, sometimes you don't. Now most things are going to be virtual as well too. But you have the opportunity to go to these type of career fairs, interact with recruiters, interact with people that are currently employed with these companies, take note of their name, try and get their contact information, circle back with them, see, especially for a recruiter, that kind of makes our life a little easier. If you qualify for a job and you reach out to us and we're like, yes, let's try and get them an interview. So building those relationships, just because we are not in person currently right now, do not allow that to limit you as well. Ask, hey, can I get 10, 15 minutes on your calendar? I would like to know a little bit more about your position. You want to do those more so with recruiters versus an actual hiring manager or something like that. So that's kind of what I would say. Utilize and research LinkedIn, the company, pick up as many names as you can, career fairs, and go from there. I hope that answered that question. Okay.
I think that it still goes back to the whole point that we've been driving home, which is to do your research. People underestimate the what's the word I want to use? The people underestimate LinkedIn. Just to blanket the statement, they really underestimate LinkedIn. There are so many positions that are posted on there for jobs that you probably wouldn't even think about. So if there's even something that you have just a hint of a interest in, check LinkedIn.
Yeah, definitely.
Job alerts, yes, and do all of those things to help keep you in the loop, because you can set up job alerts for these positions to stay on top of it. I think when we were preparing, we had I don't know if it's on my list, I don't know what happened to it, but we had a brief conversation about setting up job alerts and how important it is to be one of the earlier people to apply. I know for the government, they get hundreds of applications, and that is well represented when you see a note on the job announcement that says they'll cut it off after 100 applicants. So they cut it off after 100 people, or pull a list after 100 people, that the sooner you can apply for something, the better. And if you're prepared with your resume already, you don't have to wait for that to update that or to hire a resume writer or whatever the case may be. Preparation is key. Job alerts are key. Doing your research, the highest of key. Do your homework, people.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't really say it enough.
And I would say even with the government, a lot of information they have to put on there. But with private companies, we don't necessarily have to let you know how many applicants we're taking in and how many applicants we're going to view, or how we're going to view those applicants as well. So job alerts, very important. So as soon as something opens up, that you're able to just go ahead and turn around and put your resume in, get your application in. And also, when it comes to LinkedIn, just one more thing about that, take the time to actually build your own LinkedIn page. You actually can put your resume details on LinkedIn as well too. So utilize that tool, because again, if I'm sourcing, which is another part of recruiting, but if I'm sourcing for a particular candidate and they haven't applied, I don't have their resume yet, but I see that, hey, they go to this school, they're this major, they're in this city. Let me go ahead and, I can do again a Boolean search for that, pull it up, and I'm able to look at that person's resume right there. And now I'm able to reach out to them because based off of what they've done on LinkedIn, this is somebody that can really fit a job for me. And I recruit for these high-level jobs, but I only need one person. So sometimes that can be very challenging. But if I see all these details on LinkedIn, hey, I'm going to send that person a message. Are you looking for a job? Whatever the case may be, then I go into my recruitment level there. But take the time also to invest in your LinkedIn page. And now LinkedIn even has where you can upload a video on your homepage as well too. So utilize all those tools while you're in this type of career search.
And what I'll say about LinkedIn too, if you know the industry or the position title that you're interested in, look for different profiles. If you have no idea where to start, look for different profiles within that same career field to figure out how to set up your LinkedIn. It'll give you ideas on the information that you need to include, and it stops you from paying somebody, because it is very expensive to have your LinkedIn profile completed by a third party.
Yes.
I look at the prices and they are not nice. So the shortcut that I can give you is to it goes back to the research piece. So to look up, knowing what industry you want to be in, and to look into that, different profiles for those particular industries to update your LinkedIn account. Last question that I know of for now, I'll check as we go through it, but what do I do if I'm called for a panel interview?
What do you do?
What do you do? How do you handle that situation? How do you make
You go through a panel interview. Panel interviews can definitely be intimidating. But again, it's just the same show. You have to be confident in your ability. You have to make sure you are connecting with each individual that's on that panel, that you're making that eye contact, that you're responding appropriately. But panel, individual interview, just the same.
Yep. It's one of those things where you really just have to focus on you and the answers that you provide. If that, whether that's a panel interview with other people or a panel interview with because most interviews nowadays, like my interview board consisted of 3 different people, and it was just another way for somebody to jot down the information. So whether it's on that side and you have 3 different people interviewing you, or you are on the other side and you have 3 different people with you doing the interview, the focus should be the same to make yourself stand out.
Yeah.
And so do you have any closing remarks? Any tips, pointers, just anything that's on your heart?
What I would say is definitely for anyone that joined, kudos to you, trying to get this additional information, especially free information. I think that is, it speaks volume that you're invested in yourself, you're invested in your career, and even those that may be around you, that you can provide this information to them as well. The job market is kind of crazy right now, just because of everything that's going on, but it's still, you want to make sure that you are as prepared as possible going into these interviews, that you are confident in yourself, that you're confident in your ability and your skill set as well too. And don't try and say, well, I've only done this, I've only done that. Transferable skills are huge. And I would just say be confident with it. And again, connect as much as you can and network as much as you can with a recruiter. If you know, hey, I want to go work for this particular company, I want to do this particular job, network as much as you possibly can, even in a virtual aspect. It's still possible to get your name out there. It's nothing better than a solid recommendation, a solid referral. Like, hey, I've been connecting with this person online for the last couple of months, I want to interview them. It's nothing better than a hiring manager reaching out to a recruiter in that manner. So that's all that I pretty much have.
Good, thank you. Thank you, of course, for taking the time to just share your knowledge and share your expertise. That's the most important thing. I think it's always great to have people around you that are staff in the things that you are deficient in, or maybe just, I'm a key person of, just because I know how to doesn't mean I should, or just because I know how to doesn't mean I have to do it all. So with that, thank you for taking the time to share this information, of course, with us. Takeaways for me, I can't really stress it enough on the importance of making sure you have a well-written resume, and making sure that it's done in a timely manner. For me, if you were to contact me and say, hey, I need a resume and I need it in 48 hours, my expedited fees, they are hefty. And so don't wait until the last minute, because anything that requires less than a 5-day turnaround, you're going to pay for it. And some people, resume writer wise, don't even take the opportunity to perform expedited resume services. It's just a little more stressful than what writing a resume can sometimes already be. So just make sure you take the time in all aspects to prepare for your resume, to prepare for your interview. And if you have to go back and watch this session, it will be on Facebook and later on YouTube to watch later, to jot down notes. I know that we presented a lot of information kind of expeditiously for the sake of time, and then if you have any questions, definitely don't be afraid to reach out. You can always email us at the PottsFoundation. The email is foundation@keyinspires.com. Simple. If you have any questions and maybe you were scared to drop it in the chat, or maybe we covered something and you're watching this later, shoot me a direct message. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram and send a personal message there as well. But like I said, just send an email. Nevertheless, the point of it all is for you to know and to understand that we are here as a resource for you. Our next session is not until January. We are going to take a breather. We've pretty much completed 3 workshops back to back in a way, and in all things, you rest. You need rest. So we are going to slow it down just a little bit, and we'll be back in January with our next session. Our next session is going to cover finances. I know that finances for me in college, I didn't really think anything of it, didn't care anything about it. And I don't want that to be you guys the same story. I know that we've directed this conversation towards college students and towards high school students. But at the end of the day, no matter where you are in life, you need a resume. No matter where you are in life, you may need interview tips. And no matter where you are in life, you may need help with your money. So with that, our next workshop will still be relevant to everybody, but it will be catered specifically towards students. So if you want to join us, please make sure you are following us on our social media platforms. Under the Potts Foundation, we can be found on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube under that same tagline. And if you have any questions, always reach out and we will be more than happy to help you. So we thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye. Bye, everybody.